We make the stream.
Back at the shop, and so we are gonna try and get this thing freaking primered today. Do a little bit of body work on all these little low spots. That's basically what I talked about at the beginning of last video, and then I ended up kind of cleaning out the interior, kind of seeing where we were at with the whole engine and all that stuff, engine wiring stuff. So now we kind of got a little bit more of that figured out, and I ordered some parts for it. We're gonna go ahead and actually get this thing re-primered, and so I can actually see what I'm dealing with. But before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and buzz the whole thing. I don't think they blocked the roof. The woof, the rough, whatever you want to call it. But anyhow, this is some 220 grit, and I probably won't DA it. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on a block, probably with like some 150 or 180 grit. Block it down a little bit, get a little bit of that texture. If you see all that texture right there, let's see all that texture right there. Knock some of that stuff down, and then probably hit it with a little bit of guide coat, see if I have any low spots that I could take care of before I primer it, so that I don't have to keep priming this thing. But I don't know, I'd like to get this thing painted as fast as I can, and we'll talk about paint color later. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the little slider block, the pneumatic one, and go ahead and buzz this roof down and then the side panels. Alright, so I just finished kind of blocking this thing on this file sander right here. This thing has a thing of 150 grit sandpaper on the bottom, so it's a little bit more aggressive than the 180, and it seems to work pretty well on primer and stuff like this, especially kind of in this stage. So there is a couple spots that are kind of showing. You can see right there, that is a low spot. Let's see if it'll focus on there for us. Alright, yeah, you can see that's a low spot. That's a low spot right there, but there still is primer there to keep sanding off. But the primer is just really, same thing with this whole section right here. So let's see if this will focus on there. Okay, we got my hand, we got that. So you can see that's pretty much all a low spot because it knocked off the top of it. You can see knocked off the top of it, and then right here smooth. The tops of it are smooth, but it's not smooth down in the bottom of those little craters. So yeah, a couple little, there's like a little, that's a little low spot right there, another little low spot right there. But yeah, since I went ahead and sanded off the tops, now it'll be a lot easier for me to actually spread out this guide coat. This is a dry guide coat, so it's basically like a black powder, and you kind of spread it on with a sponge. And so once that's on there, I wipe it off with a microfiber too, so you're not just pushing dust around. But so we'll do that with it. I'll throw a new thing of sandpaper on there, and then we'll block it, and then we'll really be able to tell all of these spots, because I'll try to take that down a little bit more, not a whole lot in one spot, so we don't have like a crater in there, but try to make sure everything's flat and even. So, but overall the roof isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And it is it's freaking dusty in here. Look at that poor S14, just getting dusted on. It almost looks like it's freaking snowing. But as you can see, I have this part of the, or this side of the car guide coated. I got the trunk done. Went ahead, ripped off the rear bumper. I didn't like that thing. Hit that that silly tow hook off with a hammer, and I think I'm just gonna go ahead and cut that off and go with that other bumper. So yeah, I went ahead and guide coated this whole side right here, and basically hit it with 150 grit on that little file sander. And there's only really one area that kind of showed a little bit low, and you could see that right there. Let's see, we'll pull out the flashlight so you could see. Yeah, now you can really see it. So you can see all the texture right there, and a little bit of darkness from the guide coat is right where that low spot is. So everything else looks really good. Looked really good on this side. There was couple weird spots right there, but there was enough primer, and it seemed like they blocked out pretty good. So I'm not going to worry about it. And so this side, as you've seen previously, there were some issues right here on the bottom. So we'll go ahead and finish this side. But I'm not sure if I'm going to get a primer tonight, but I figured I would like to kind of show you guys a little bit more of the process. I know everybody was giving me a hard time, you know, with my Supra, like 1000, you know, primer video, like 1001 or whatever. And, you know, kind of the reason behind using primer versus just, like, essentially using primer as a tool, I guess, not just for fun or like a meme or anything like that, but seriously, like, primer is such a good tool to find low spots, high spots, you know, smooth everything out, find, you know, minor little imperfections and stuff here and there. And so this fender is going to be a good example of it. I already found one dent, and but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys kind of the whole situation with primer. So there's a low spot right there, which you could see without using the guide coat, and then there's some low spots right here that you could also see without using the guide coat. But there might be some other stuff. Instead of using this block or the file sander on this, I'm going to go ahead and do it by hand and kind of show you guys if you're trying to, you know, let's say you're just trying to body work something super simple at home. You know, this is just a good way to make it perfect, like like a motorcycle gas tank or a fender, or you've always wanted to paint something yourself, or kind of get into body work but you're too scared. There's a lot of videos out on the internet now. I mean, I'm pretty much self-taught, and there wasn't a whole lot of stuff on YouTube when I did it. I painted my first car back in 2010. If you go way back on my channel, I painted a Mustang with some ALK, some just tractor paint single stage, and turned out pretty decent. And it was funny because I actually painted that car in 3 days. But you know, some of the stuff that I did on it with the, you know, rattle can primer and all that stuff, I mean, my finger hurt for like a week, and you know, I kind of cringe at that stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw the head cam on and show you guys a little bit of the process of this. I've talked about this a lot. I did a good video on this whole process when I was doing the Supra, and everybody was talking crap about, you know, less talking, more working. So I basically talked while I work. So this is a it's a dust primer. So you can see it kind of goes on with this sponge. If you have like a tight area or something that the sponge won't fit in, you could just put a little bit of it on your hand. It's basically just like kind of chalk, like black chalk essentially. But yeah, you could already see kind of some of the spots that I'm dealing with, and you could also see like the orange peel too, or the texture in the primer, and you can hear it right there. And that's another thing that you have to do before you paint, is you got to make sure that you get all the texture out of the primer. Make sure to get it as flat as you can, flat and smooth as you can, and go from there. So you can see we're pretty much right here. Yeah, if you have any like tight spots, you can just put a little bit of it on your hands, kind of rub it in like that. Take a little bit and just put that in the bottom of that hole and rub it in real good, so that way we'll be able to see this a little bit later. So come on over here to my paint and bodywork cabinet station. Hopefully this isn't too boring. Let's see, this one has a bunch of sticky crap on it, so we won't use that. This one's got some freaking, that's kind of too big. This is what I would use for like a quarter panel or the doors. I probably should be using this, but I'm being kind of lazy. But essentially, the longer the block, the better it'll turn out. I'm trying to find the other freaking block. Let's see. Maybe we could just use this round one. Yeah, we'll just use this freaking We'll just use this round one. And this is the 150 grit. And this stuff seems to work pretty well for knocking down primer without like rounding too much stuff off. Because you got to have that perfect amount of like, you know, the give and take between like shaving too much off and being too aggressive, and then being too smooth of a grit of sandpaper and just rounding stuff off. Because you don't want to round stuff off. You want to basically cut through it and make it nice and flat. So I feel like the 150 grit does a pretty good job of kind of doing that. It kind of went on there weird, but we'll just try to use this side of it, not this bubbly side right there. Okay. So yeah, you'll see right off the bat, right when we start messing with this, there is our, that's our low spot right there. So there's a low spot. If you start working right here, you can see that's a low spot as well. And one of the nice things is, and I kind of wish I had a different block than this. So like, see the texture that I was talking about right here, or like right here. So you'll see this texture. Actually, that's kind of a low spot there too. You can see the further we go, you can see the texture kind of going away. And that's when you know you can stop sanding, is basically when you're at the bottom of that texture and you don't see it anymore. It just looks like a nice, you know, sanded panel, and all you can see is basically this right there, all that. So you can see we actually took a little bit of that dent out by sanding the primer and leveling it all out. This is about the size of block that you kind of want for like little round corners, edges and stuff like this. So you can see, there we go. You can see that's a lot better. And you'll basically just see the imperfections, even like the small little stuff as you're going around it. And you just keep sanding until it kind of goes away. You know, even like little rock chips and little stuff like that. It just, primer and the guide coat just magnify it, so you actually know what you're doing. So yeah, you can see those little spots right there. I'm gonna have to fill that with a little bit of icing. And then this up here, I don't really think that's too big of a deal right there. Kind of a little low spot, but I'm not gonna be super critical on this thing. And this is when the foam block is kind of nice, because you kind of blends all these edges and stuff as far as the curves. Because if you have too hard of a block and you're just gouging in, and you can make like straight lines. Getting closer. So went ahead and did the file sander on this whole side of the car. Did a little bit more stuff to the fender down there, and basically I could feel, if you guys could see right there, that's a nice little low spot right here, little bitty one right there, and nothing too crazy. All of them are, I mean, probably a 1/16 of an inch, you know, thick, just real tiny. You know, not really a big dent or anything at all. Like really, this one's really small. If I actually like sanded this all the way down and took all that primer off, it would probably just look like a little, you know, like a little bitty ripple in it. There's not really a dent. Kind of checked out a couple other things on this this side right there. One of the main things is just kind of having a feel for it, you know, and just basically taking your hands and just kind of rubbing, you know, all the way up and down, and kind of just feeling the panels, you know, and kind of understanding kind of what a straight panel feels like. Sometimes you got to kind of go forward and back, like right there. I almost feel like a little bit of a low spot, like right here. So maybe we'll add just a little bit right there. Maybe it's high right here. Maybe it more so feels high right here than it does low. Yeah, so that's just kind of, you know, kind of get your hand and run it kind of fast, and you could kind of feel, you know, any ripples or anything. And I mean, a lot of it's in your hand and your feel, and then especially using the primer to see the major stuff. But you know, a lot of times if you could kind of feel something like this, I mean, that's really not too big of a deal. I mean, just a little bitty thing. You guys obviously can't see that, but I could feel just a smidge there. There's a little tiny low stuff right here, which honestly I think with the next coat of primer it'll fill those in. And mostly it's just little stuff like that. Like you could see there's like a small little spot right there, which the next, you know, round of primer will fill that stuff up. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and sand the inside of this stuff and throw a little bit of icing on it. But before I do that, before I do the icing, you have to scuff it up a bit. So let's see, I got some 80 grit right here. So we'll go ahead and cut off a little chunk of this. Yeah. Start with something like that. And then what we'll do is we'll basically just scratch the insides of these, kind of in a little bit around them too. I mean, 80 grit is honestly kind of, I would feel like the minimum that you should scratch before you really lay in any fillers or anything like that. Go a little bit around it so it kind of has something to bite to and kind of blend into. So I'm kind of doing that with those little chips right there. Like a little tiny one right there. But yeah. So yeah, so this is scuffed right there. There's like a tiny little, I'll just kind of hit that a little bit right there. Same thing with right here. Give those a little bit of tooth. There is a little low spot right here that we found. So we'll kind of fill up that and kind of give it a little scuff around it, just so it kind of has something to blend and bite to. There's a little weird spot down here. So we'll come back and add a little bit to that. And kind of one of the things you could see is you could see the different grit of sandpaper when you're kind of looking for those spots, and you got to kind of, you definitely got to remember where they're coming from or where they were at, because it is sometimes hard to lose them. And again, just kind of running your hand over the car multiple times throughout the whole process. Okay, I think we're ready to mix up a little bit of filler, a little bit of icing at least. Try to straighten this guy out a little bit. These little boards are nice. If you guys are interested in any of like these Durablocks or sandpaper, any of that stuff, I will have some links down in the description, linking to my Amazon Associates page, and that'll take you there. I believe you could get this icing on there. I've linked that to a couple people in the past. So normally what I like to do, a little bit of paint gun cleaner, lacquer thinner, whatever you want to call it. kind of clean off my my hands, gloves or whatever. And you don't really want to do this barehanded because the oils from your skin kind of mess with it. So yeah. Alright, that should get us. I mean, honestly, that's quite a bit. Man, that's almost too much, but sometimes it's better to have too much than not enough. Make sure to knead your hardener. Knead your hardener. Make sure you have your spreaders ready and clean before you put your hardener on the mixing board. We're gonna use this big guy right here. I'm gonna mix it with the small one. Oh, geez. That's probably too much. That's probably too much. So typically what I'll do is I'll kind of pull that a little bit to the side if I think I got too much. Kind of give it a wiggle. Yeah, I think this is about the right amount. That would have been way too much. See, it's pretty blue right now. It's typically more so a light blue, more so than this, a lighter blue than this, because this is light blue. You definitely don't want it that blue. You don't want it like white or the off-white that it comes. You want it kind of a little bit of a blue tint. As long as it's mostly blue, you know you got it pretty mixed up. And the thinner you leave it laid out, the longer it takes to set up, so it'll give you a little bit more work time. And we'll come over here, adding a little bit more than you know, the dent ensures that you don't have to come back again. But a lot of times you kind of do anyhow, because there's sometimes little pinholes and stuff. But this icing stuff seems to work really well. Sands pretty quick, sands pretty easy. And again, any little imperfections will get us with the Hello?
Yes, me. Hello?
Hi.
What are you doing?
Laying body filler and making a video. What are you doing?
Oh, I was just checking on you because I didn't hear from you back.
Oh. Alright guys, so we are back at this stuff. Jamie called me, so I talked to her for a little bit while I was spreading this stuff. So there's kind of a weird little spot right here. I went ahead and I put some 80 grit on the 9-inch block. I cleaned off all that previous stuff, so it's a nice flat block again. I probably won't hit this with the 80. I'll probably hit that with a little bit lower, but like these spots right here that I actually put a little bit more on, I actually want it to cut through. And so this 80 grit scratch will get filled by the primer when we re-primer it, so we shouldn't have to worry about that too much. Yeah, just where it can start. This icing sands really, really nice. Alright, so that one looks pretty good. At first, the stuff kind of does clog your paper a little bit, so you do have to run through a couple pieces of couple pieces of the 80 grit, because the top layer does remain a little tiny bit tacky. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and do this one since this is the main one that we were kind of focusing on to begin with. And that should be about it right there. You can see that's just knock that down with some 180, and you can see our nice little dent that we filled there. So, and you could also see some of that stuff, a little bit of sand scratches, and we'll be able to, since there is some more primer around here, we could actually block this a little bit more. And make sure that it's like really nice with like the 180 or 150 grit. So that's yeah, that dent is completely gone. Now to just do a couple of these other little dents down here and on the other side. So, got over to this side over here, you can see where I put this filler. And so basically what this is telling me, you know, reading the braille of the bodywork. See, I could probably sand it a little bit more right here, because that's not quite feathered and there's not a high spot right here. So kind of what's telling me that it's still low right here, and right here is this right there. So you can see it's sanding that down, that's flat with this. This is the same level as that, as well as that, but then it's not touching right here. And you can't, if this is level and this is level, and it's not touching those, then that means it's a low spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably sand it a little bit more right here, but honestly that's probably a little bit low as well. So what I'll do is I'll basically just kind of feather over into here, and then one thing is you can see those little pinholes right there. Those will get filled with the second little layer of it. I had one little issue down here. A little bit of a low spot right there is where you can see where it's still blue instead of kind of white after you sand it. So yeah, I think other than that, this one turned out real nice. That one feels nice and flat. Same with this and same with that. You can see how little of filler there actually is in there. Same thing with this one, because these were just really low. This was kind of spread out, and then there's just a little section right there at the bottom that needs a little bit more. But this one turned out really nice right there. That was that fender dent. So I'm gonna mix up a little bit more and add to that. But before I put any filler on it, I'll take the other piece of 80 grit and kind of scuff real good right on those edges. And then I'll basically put the filler right there, and it'll have some nice tooth to hook to. That is going to be it for tonight. I hope you guys learned a little bit of something. You can see right here, you can almost see the tooth. Ah, this stupid thing. The thing always just makes it look weird. So you can see, might be hard to see. There's basically like a little bit of blue stuff right here, which was the original filler that we put there, and then this is all kind of where it feathered out. So you can kind of see the stages of it, but you can see where I circled it. But yeah, that looks good. Feels nice and flat, nice and smooth, which is exactly what you want and need. These things down here on the bottom turned out really good. I'm like kind of glad that it was already bodyworked and kind of not at the same time, just because I don't know how bad it was really to get it to this point. But overall, it seems pretty decent now. I was stoked that the roof was actually pretty all right. So I think after basically one more coat of primer, blocking that down, probably with like 220 on that little file sander, and sanding all, you know, around the cracks and crevices and stuff. I would have primered it tonight if it wasn't for, you know, like all the edges of stuff, you know, like inside the door handles and around here. It's honestly a lot easier to mask a car when the windows are in it versus not in it. But yeah, that's probably going to be it, or that is it for tonight, guys. Stay tuned for maybe tomorrow. I hope that I'll have a little bit of time to try to get this thing frickin' primered. We are going to be doing some Florida prep. I think we're going to be leaving Thursday, but I'm not 100% sure. There's a couple things I'd like to do to the Supra, the truck, the trailer. There's just a lot of things going on. So yeah, if you guys are stoked about this Civic, be sure to subscribe and be sure to like the video and give me a nice comment, a mean comment, something. Still really trying to decide what color. I kind of thought orange would be cool. You know, like orange with like the purple engine base. Somebody mentioned that in one of the other comments, or like yellow, like the Type R yellow with like orange, or with like Type R yellow with like purple wheels or white wheels or something like that. I think that would work out really well. Overall, I'm just kind of stoked to actually kind of get this thing running and driving, and I think probably I'll get it running and driving, kind of play around with it for a little bit, have some fun, and then probably just end up selling it. I don't want to answer like how much or whatever. Just stay tuned. When I do decide to sell it or whatever, you guys will be the first to know. Yeah, that's gonna be it. Again, thanks for watching, and see you guys tomorrow, hopefully.